The interrogation room was cold, a sterile box of steel and silence. The air smelled of old coffee and sweat, yet the weight in the room was something heavier, something invisible yet suffocating. Detective Sarah Lawson sat motionless, pen poised over her notebook, her eyes locked onto the man seated across from her. Michael Carter. A name that had never crossed her radar before tonight. He wasn't an obvious suspect. He wasn't the type to make waves. But here he was, hands cuffed to the metal table, fingers tapping a slow, nervous rhythm. He had called for this meeting himself, saying he had something to confess, something that would change everything. "I killed her," he said. 3 words, delivered with no hesitation, no emotion. But they held a gravity that sent a cold shudder through Sarah's spine. She had worked homicide for 15 years. She had heard countless confessions. But there was something about the way Michael spoke, detached, yet haunted, that sent her instincts into overdrive. "Who?" she asked, keeping her voice even. A flicker of something, pain, regret, darkness, crossed his face before he answered. "Anna Matthews." Sarah inhaled sharply. Anna Matthews. A case that had haunted the nation. A bright, ambitious investigative journalist who had vanished 7 years ago without a trace. No body, no leads, just whispers and theories. The media had dubbed it the vanishing of the century. And now, Michael Carter was claiming responsibility. Sarah tightened her grip on her pen. "Tell me everything." Michael exhaled slowly, his fingers still drumming against the table. It started on a rainy night. Anna Matthews was relentless. That was what had drawn Michael to her, and what had ultimately sealed her fate. She had been digging, pulling at threads she shouldn't have. She was investigating corporate corruption, the kind of scandal that could bring down giants. What she didn't realize was that she had stumbled onto something bigger, something darker. She had no idea that the man she had smiled at absent-mindedly in a coffee shop was the very monster she should have feared. Michael had spent years building an empire in the shadows. Money laundering, fraud, manipulation. His world was a house of cards, and Anna was getting too close. Too persistent. Too dangerous. "It was a Wednesday," Michael continued, his voice quieter now. "I watched her for days. I knew she was close to the truth. I told myself I'd scare her, warn her off." He swallowed hard. But then something shifted. Anna had been walking home alone. The rain had made the pavement slick, the streets empty. She had heard the footsteps behind her, turned, and her eyes had widened with recognition. "You," she had said, confusion in her voice. Michael clenched his fists. "I told her to stop digging. She refused." Their conversation had turned heated. Anna had been fearless, defiant. She had threatened to go public, to expose everything. "I didn't plan to kill her," Michael whispered, his voice cracking for the first time. "But I snapped." He described the moment with eerie detachment. The shove, the way her head struck the curb, the stillness that followed. The rain washes away the blood, as if trying to erase his crime. She was dead. Just gone. Sarah's stomach twisted, but she kept her face unreadable. "What did you do next?" Michael's lips pressed into a thin line. "I made her disappear." He had carried her to his car, driven for miles, and found an abandoned construction site on the outskirts of the city. He had buried her beneath layers of dirt and concrete, silencing the truth forever. Or so he had thought. "For 7 years, I lived with it," Michael said. "I told myself I had no choice, that she would have ruined me. But then, she came back." Sarah frowned. "What do you mean?" Michael's eyes darkened. "I see her. Everywhere. In reflections, in my dreams. She whispers my name." Sarah felt a shiver crawl up her spine. Guilt could do strange things to a person, but the raw terror in Michael's expression unsettled her. "Is that why you're confessing?" she asked. Michael let out a bitter laugh. "I thought I could live with it. But she won't let me." He leaned in slightly, his voice dropping. You don't understand, detective. She's not just in my head. She's real. Sarah's fingers tightened around her pen. You mean you believe she's haunting you? Michael's jaw tensed. You don't believe me. No one will. But she's here. He turned his head slightly, as if hearing something just beyond Sarah's reach. She's listening. The silence that followed was suffocating. Sarah inhaled slowly. Michael, you said Anna wasn't your first. A slow, eerie smile spread across his lips. That's right. Sarah felt her pulse spike. How many? Michael tilted his head, as if pondering. Enough. The confession that shook the world was only the beginning.